In a small, quiet town surrounded by green hills and winding roads, there lived a young woman named Emily. She was in her late 20s, with warm brown eyes and a smile that could light up even the gloomiest days. Emily worked long hours at a cozy little diner called Maggie's Place, serving coffee, burgers, and fries to locals who came in for a quick bite or a chat. Her life wasn't glamorous, but it was fulfilling because she did everything for one special person, her grandmother. Emily's grandmother, Margaret, had raised her since she was a baby. Margaret was a kind-hearted woman in her late 80s, full of stories about her youth, wisdom, and an endless supply of love. She had been the rock of their family after Emily's parents passed away in a car accident when she was just 6 years old. Growing up, Emily learned the value of hard work, kindness, and gratitude from her grandmother. Now, as Margaret grew older, Emily made sure to take care of her the way she had once taken care of her. As Margaret's birthday approached, Emily wanted to do something truly memorable. Birthdays were always important in their household, but this year felt different. Margaret had recently started forgetting things, names, dates, even where she kept her glasses, and Emily knew time was precious. She decided to throw a small birthday party at their home. It wouldn't be fancy. They couldn't afford that anyway. But she planned to cook her grandmother's favorite dishes, bake a cake, and decorate the living room with balloons and streamers. The thought of seeing her grandmother's face light up with joy kept Emily motivated, despite her busy schedule at the diner. One chilly autumn morning, as Emily served breakfast to customers at Maggie's Place, she noticed someone unusual sitting in the corner booth near the window. He was a man in his mid-40s, tall and lean, dressed in worn-out jeans and a faded jacket. His hair was messy, his beard unkempt, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. Despite his appearance, there was something intriguing about him. His deep-set eyes seemed to hold secrets, and his posture suggested confidence rather than defeat. Curious, Emily walked over to his table with her notepad in hand. "Can I get you anything?" she asked politely, trying not to stare too much. The man glanced up at her and gave a faint smile. "Just a cup of black coffee, please," he replied in a soft voice. Emily nodded and jotted down his order before heading back to the counter. Over the next few weeks, the man became a regular visitor. Every day, around the same time, he would sit in the same booth, sipping coffee and occasionally ordering a slice of pie. He never spoke much, but whenever Emily greeted him, he responded kindly. Something about him tugged at Emily's heartstrings. While most people avoided eye contact with him, assuming he was homeless, Emily couldn't ignore the sense that he was different. One afternoon, during a slow shift at the diner, she decided to strike up a conversation. "You come here often," she said casually as she refilled his coffee cup. The man looked up, surprised by her friendliness. "Yes, I suppose I do," he replied with a hint of amusement in his tone. "The coffee here is good." Encouraged by his response, Emily continued, "Do you live nearby? I haven't seen you around town before." The man hesitated for a moment, then shrugged. "I travel a lot," he said vaguely. "This place caught my attention, so I stayed a while." Though his answer didn't reveal much, Emily sensed there was more to his story. Still, she didn't push further. Instead, she thanked him for being a loyal customer and returned to her duties. As the days went by, Emily found herself thinking about the mysterious stranger more often than she cared to admit. There was something comforting yet enigmatic about his presence. When she mentioned him to her co-workers, they dismissed him as just another drifter passing through town. But Emily disagreed. She had seen glimpses of intelligence and warmth in his eyes, qualities that didn't align with the stereotype of homelessness. Meanwhile, preparations for her grandmother's birthday party were underway. Emily spent her evenings baking cakes, making lists of guests, and cleaning every nook and cranny of their modest home. On the day of the party, she realized she needed help setting up chairs and tables in the backyard, with no one else available. To assist her, she impulsively decided to ask the stranger at the diner. After all, he had shown kindness during his visits, and she trusted her instincts. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the sky, Emily approached the man's usual booth. "Hi," she began nervously. "I hope I'm not bothering you, but I'm hosting a birthday party for my grandmother tomorrow, and I could really use some help setting things up. Would you mind lending a hand?" The man studied her for a moment, then smiled warmly. "I'd be happy to help," he said simply. Relieved and grateful, Emily thanked him profusely. As they exchanged names, his was Daniel, she felt a spark of excitement. Little did she know inviting Daniel into her life would change everything. For now, though, she focused on ensuring her grandmother's birthday celebration would be perfect. What she didn't realize was that Daniel harbored secrets far beyond what she or anyone else in town could imagine. And those secrets would soon unravel in ways she never expected. The next morning, Emily woke up early to prepare for her grandmother's birthday party. She had spent hours the previous night cleaning and organizing the house, but there was still so much to do. As she busied herself arranging chairs and tables, in the backyard, Daniel arrived right on time, looking surprisingly neat despite his usual disheveled appearance. He wore a borrowed pair of slacks and a clean shirt that Emily suspected he must have borrowed from someone, or perhaps stashed away somewhere. His hair was combed back and his beard trimmed just enough to make him look presentable. "Good morning," Daniel greeted her with a small smile as he approached. "You said you needed help?" Emily nodded gratefully. "Yes. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it." Together, they worked side by side, setting up decorations, blowing up balloons, and arranging plates of food on long wooden tables. Despite his reserved nature, Daniel proved to be incredibly helpful. He carried heavy furniture without complaint, adjusted streamers with surprising precision, and even offered creative suggestions for arranging flowers. As they worked, Emily found herself stealing glances at him. There was something oddly comforting about his presence, as if his calm demeanor brought a sense of order to the chaos of planning a party. At one point, she handed him a hammer to hang a banner, and their fingers brushed briefly. Startled, Emily quickly pulled her hand back, feeling an unexpected flutter in her chest. "Sorry," she muttered awkwardly. Daniel chuckled softly. No harm done. By noon, most of the setup was complete. The backyard looked festive, with colorful balloons tied to chair backs, twinkling fairy lights strung between trees, and a large "Happy Birthday" sign hanging proudly above the dessert table. Emily stepped back to admire their work, wiping sweat from her brow. "It looks amazing," she said with a satisfied grin. "Thank you again, Daniel. I couldn't have done this without you." Daniel shrugged modestly. "It was nothing. Besides, it's nice to see someone care so deeply for their family. You're lucky to have your grandmother." His words caught Emily off guard. She hadn't expected such insight from him, but she realized he was right. Margaret wasn't just her grandmother. She was her hero, her guide, and her best friend, all rolled into one. Later that afternoon, guests began arriving. Neighbors, friends, and distant relatives filled the backyard, chatting and laughing as music played softly in the background. Emily introduced Daniel to everyone as a kind stranger who helped me set up today. No one questioned his presence. Instead, they welcomed him warmly, assuming he was simply another friendly face in the crowd. Margaret, seated comfortably in a decorated armchair, beamed as people wished her happy birthday and shared stories about her life. At one point during the celebration, Daniel stood up unexpectedly and raised his glass. Everyone turned to look at him, curious. Clearing his throat, he began to speak. "I may not know many of you personally," he said in a clear, confident voice, "but I can tell how much love and respect you all share for this remarkable woman." He gestured toward Margaret, who blushed slightly at the attention. "Margaret has taught us through her kindness, resilience, and unwavering optimism that life is about connections, not possessions. So here's to her. May she continue to inspire everyone around her for many more years to come." A round of applause erupted after his heartfelt toast. Emily watched in awe, marveling at how effortlessly Daniel commanded the room. There was something magnetic about him, a quiet authority that made people listen. Even Margaret seemed touched, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue as she smiled at him. After the party wound down and guests started leaving, Daniel stayed behind to help clean up. Emily noticed how naturally he fit into their home, carrying dishes inside and folding chairs with ease. It felt surreal, almost like he belonged there. As they worked together under the soft glow of string lights, Emily finally gathered the courage to ask the question that had been nagging at her for weeks. "So, Daniel," she began hesitantly, stacking empty cups onto a tray. "Can I ask you something personal?" He paused mid-step, then nodded slowly. "Of course." Emily took a deep breath. "You've been coming to the diner for a while now, and I can't help but notice, well, you don't seem like any homeless person I've ever met. You carry yourself differently. You talk differently. Are you sure you're telling me the whole truth about who you are?" For a moment, Daniel didn't respond. He stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then, with a sigh, he set down the stack of plates he'd been holding and leaned against the table. "You're observant, Emily," he admitted. "And yes, there's more to my story than what I've told you. But I promise I'll explain everything when the time is right." His cryptic answer left Emily frustrated yet intrigued. She wanted to press further, to demand answers, but something in his tone stopped her. Instead, she nodded reluctantly. "Okay," she said. "But I hope that right time comes soon." Over the next few days, Emily couldn't stop thinking about Daniel's mysterious behavior. Their paths crossed again at the diner, where he continued to visit daily. Each time she tried subtly probing him for clues about his past, but he skillfully deflected her questions with vague responses or clever changes of subject. Still, their bond grew stronger. They talked about books, movies, and dreams they hoped to achieve someday. Emily discovered that beneath his guarded exterior lay a brilliant mind and a heart full of empathy. One rainy afternoon, as thunder rumbled outside and the diner sat nearly empty, Daniel surprised her. Sitting in his usual booth, he motioned for her to join him. Hesitant but curious, Emily slid into the seat across from him. "What is it?" she asked, noticing the serious look on his face. "I owe you an explanation," Daniel said quietly, "about why I'm here and who I really am." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small leather wallet. Flipping it open, he revealed an ID card emblazoned with the logo of a prestigious corporation. Emily squinted at the name printed below the photo. Daniel Whitmore, CEO. Her jaw dropped. "You're a CEO?" she stammered, unable to process what she was seeing. "But how? Why would someone like you pretend to be homeless?" Daniel sighed deeply, running a hand through his damp hair. "It's complicated," he admitted. "Let's just say I got tired of living a life dictated by money and power. I walked away from it all because I needed to find myself, to remember what truly matters. That's why I came here to this town, to live simply and anonymously. But meeting you, watching how hard you work for your grandmother, how selfless you are, it reminded me of why I started building my fortune in the first place, to make a difference." Emily listened intently, her mind racing. A billionaire posing as a homeless man? It sounded like something out of a movie. Yet sitting there in front of her, Daniel appeared completely sincere. Slowly, she began to understand. Beneath the layers of mystery and wealth, he was still just a man searching for meaning in his life. And somehow, fate had brought them together. Their conversation stretched late into the evening, with Daniel sharing snippets of his journey, from humble beginnings to unimaginable success, and Emily opening up about her own struggles and aspirations. By the time they parted ways, both felt a newfound connection, one that transcended appearances and circumstances. What started as curiosity was blossoming into something deeper, something neither of them could ignore. Unbeknownst to Emily, this revelation marked the beginning of a transformation, not just for her but for the entire town. Little did she know, Daniel's decision to step back into his old life wouldn't just change hers, it would ripple outward, touching countless lives in ways she couldn't yet imagine. In the weeks that followed Daniel's revelation, Emily found herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. On one hand, she was amazed by the depth of his story and the humility with which he carried himself despite his immense wealth. On the other hand, doubt lingered at the edges of her mind. Could someone like him, someone who had lived such an extraordinary life, truly find happiness in a small-town diner waitress like her? The contrast between their worlds seemed insurmountable, yet every interaction they shared only deepened her admiration for him. Daniel, too, appeared to be grappling with conflicting feelings. After years of avoiding emotional connections while living incognito, he now found himself drawn to Emily's authenticity and kindness. Her ability to see, beyond his outward appearance, to treat him as a person rather than a label, had awakened something within him. For the first time in what felt like forever, he wanted to let someone in, to share not just his secrets but also his hopes and fears. Their conversations grew longer and more intimate. They met frequently, sometimes at the diner when it was quiet, other times taking long walks through the park or sitting by the riverbank where the water shimmered under the sunlight. During these moments, they talked about everything: childhood memories, favorite books, dreams for the future. Emily learned that Daniel wasn't just a businessman. He was also a dreamer, someone who loved poetry and music and believed in making the world a better place. Meanwhile, Daniel discovered that Emily's resilience and optimism stemmed from years of hardship and sacrifice, qualities he deeply admired. One crisp autumn afternoon, as golden leaves swirled around them, Daniel opened up even further. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "when I left my old life behind, I thought I'd never return to it. I convinced myself that wealth had corrupted me, that I couldn't trust anyone anymore. But meeting you, it made me realize how wrong I was." Emily tilted her head, studying his face. "What do you mean?" He hesitated before answering. "People like us. We're not so different, you and I. We both want to make a difference, to leave the world better than we found it. You've been doing that your whole life without needing money or power. Watching you care for your grandmother, work tirelessly at the diner, and still find joy in the little things. It's inspiring. It reminded me why I started building my fortune in the first place, not for luxury, but to create opportunities for others." Emily smiled faintly, touched by his words. "So what are you saying? Are you planning to go back to your old life?" Daniel nodded slowly. "I think I have to. Not because I miss the lifestyle, but because I can use my resources to help people like you, people who deserve a chance but don't always get one. But," he paused, looking at her earnestly, "I don't want to lose what I've found here, what I've found with you." His confession sent a shiver down Emily's spine. She hadn't expected him to be so vulnerable, so honest about his intentions. Yet instead of feeling overwhelmed, she felt a sense of clarity. Despite their vastly different backgrounds, they were united by shared values and a desire to make a positive impact. And maybe, just maybe, love could bridge the gap between their worlds. As winter approached, Daniel began reintegrating into his former life. He reached out to trusted colleagues and business partners, explaining his absence and outlining plans to revive charitable initiatives he had once championed. At the same time, he continued spending time with Emily, introducing her to aspects of his world cautiously. He took her to art galleries, introduced her to classical music concerts, and even showed her the sprawling estate where he had grown up. Each new experience left Emily awestruck, though she remained grounded in her own identity. "I'm still the same girl who serves coffee at Maggie's place," she told him one evening as they strolled through the garden of his family home. "All this beauty and luxury, it's incredible, but it doesn't change who I am." Daniel stopped walking and turned to face her. "That's exactly why I admire you," he said softly. "You haven't let anything or anyone change who you are. Most people would feel intimidated or out of place, but you carry yourself with grace and confidence. That's rare, Emily. That's special." His words warmed her heart, but they also sparked a realization. If their relationship was going to work, they needed to find balance. a way to merge their two lives without losing themselves in the process. For Daniel, that meant embracing simplicity and prioritizing meaningful connections over material success. For Emily, it meant stepping out of her comfort zone and trusting that she deserved to be part of something bigger. The turning point came on Christmas Eve, during the town's annual holiday festival. Daniel surprised Emily by organizing a private gathering in the town square, complete with twinkling lights, carolers, and a horse-drawn carriage waiting nearby. As snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky, he led her to the center of the square and handed her a small velvet box. "Emily," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "you've shown me that true wealth isn't measured in dollars or possessions. It's measured in kindness, integrity, and love. You've changed my life in ways I never thought possible, and I can't imagine facing the future without you by my side." He opened the box to reveal a delicate diamond ring. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she stared at it, momentarily speechless. "Are you asking me to marry you?" she whispered finally. Daniel nodded, his gaze unwavering. "Yes. Will you?" Without hesitation, Emily threw her arms around him, laughing and crying at the same time. "Of course I will," she exclaimed. The crowd gathered around them erupted into cheers, applauding as Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger. In that moment, surrounded by friends, family, and strangers alike, Emily knew she had made the right decision. Love, she realized, transcended appearances, circumstances, and doubts. It was about finding someone who saw you for who you truly were, and cherished you all the same. News of their engagement spread quickly throughout the town, sparking both excitement and curiosity. Some people marveled at the unlikely pairing, a billionaire and a waitress, while others expressed skepticism about whether their relationship could last. But Emily and Daniel paid no attention to the whispers. They were focused on building a future together, one rooted in mutual respect, shared values, and a commitment to helping others. In the months leading up to their wedding, Daniel used his influence to support local causes, funding scholarships for underprivileged students, renovating community centers, and creating job opportunities for struggling families. Emily, meanwhile, continued working at the diner, refusing to give up the job that had shaped her character and taught her the value of hard work. Together, they proved that wealth and humility weren't mutually exclusive, that it was possible to live a life of purpose regardless of one's circumstances. On the day of their wedding, held in a quaint chapel overlooking the hills, Emily wore a simple yet elegant gown, while Daniel looked dapper in a classic suit. Margaret, seated proudly in the front row, dabbed tears from her eyes as she watched her granddaughter exchange vows with the man who had captured her heart. The ceremony was intimate and heartfelt, filled with laughter, tears, and promises of a lifetime of love and partnership. As they danced under the stars later that evening, Emily leaned her head against Daniel's shoulder and sighed contentedly. "Do you think we'll ever stop surprising each other?" she asked with a smile. Daniel chuckled softly. "I hope not," he replied. "Life is too short to settle for ordinary." And with that, they stepped into their new chapter, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, with love, courage, and an unshakable belief in the power of second chances. The months following their wedding passed in a blur of joy, discovery, and transformation. Emily and Daniel settled into their new life together, navigating the delicate balance between two vastly different worlds. For Emily, adapting to her role as the wife of a billionaire wasn't easy. She often found herself overwhelmed by the opulence of Daniel's lifestyle, the sprawling estates, private jets, and extravagant events attended by people whose names regularly appeared in headlines. Yet she refused to let these luxuries change who she was at her core. Daniel admired her resilience and determination to remain grounded. He encouraged her to keep working at Maggie's place, knowing how much the diner meant to her. "You don't have to give up your job just because we're married," he told her one evening as they sat on the porch of their modest home, a compromise between his mansion and her tiny apartment. "It's part of who you are. Besides, I think it's good for me to remember where I came from, too." Emily smiled, grateful for his understanding. Still, there were moments when she felt out of place among Daniel's elite circle of friends and associates. At charity galas and business dinners, she listened quietly as conversations revolved around stocks, investments, and high-profile deals. While she didn't fully grasp the intricacies of their discussions, she contributed in her own way, sharing stories about her grandmother, her experiences at the diner, and the lessons she'd learned growing up in a small town. Her sincerity and warmth won over even the most skeptical attendees, earning her respect and admiration. Meanwhile, Daniel continued using his wealth and influence to make a difference in Emily's community. Together, they launched several initiatives aimed at improving the lives of local residents. One project involved renovating the town's aging library, transforming it into a vibrant hub for learning and creativity. Another focused on providing affordable housing options for families struggling to make ends meet. Through these efforts, Daniel proved that his love for Emily extended beyond personal affection. It included a genuine desire to uplift the people and places she cared about. Despite their successes, challenges inevitably arose. Some members of Daniel's inner circle questioned his decision to marry someone from such humble beginnings. "She's not like us," one colleague remarked during a board meeting. "Do you really think she can handle the responsibilities that come with being your wife?" Daniel's response was firm and unyielding. "Emily is exactly the kind of person this world needs more of," he said, his voice steady but laced with authority. "Her values remind me why I started building my fortune in the first place, to help others. If anyone has a problem with that, then perhaps they're not the right people to be advising me." His words silenced the critics, though whispers persisted behind closed doors. Emily, however, remained unfazed. She knew better than anyone that true worth wasn't determined by social status or material possessions. What mattered most was character, and in that regard she had nothing to prove. As spring gave way to summer, Emily and Daniel embarked on a journey to explore parts of the world they had never seen before. They traveled to remote villages, bustling cities, and breathtaking landscapes, immersing themselves in cultures vastly different from their own. Along the way, they encountered individuals whose stories inspired them deeply. A young girl in India who dreamed of becoming a doctor, despite lacking access to proper education. A farmer in Kenya working tirelessly to provide for his family amidst drought and hardship. An artist in Italy, creating beauty out of scraps and discarded materials. These encounters reinforced their belief in the importance of compassion and generosity. Upon returning home, they established a foundation dedicated to empowering underserved communities worldwide, named after Margaret, Emily's beloved grandmother who had passed away peacefully earlier that year. The Margaret Legacy Foundation became a beacon of hope for countless individuals striving for a better future. Through the foundation, Emily discovered a newfound sense of purpose. Though she still worked shifts at the diner, she devoted much of her time to overseeing projects, organizing fundraisers, and connecting with beneficiaries. Seeing the impact of their work firsthand filled her with pride and gratitude. "This
is what life is all about," she told Daniel one evening as they reviewed plans for a new initiative. "Making a difference no matter how big or small." Daniel nodded, his eyes reflecting the same conviction. "Your grandmother would be
proud of you," he said softly. "And so am I." Amidst their busy schedules, Emily and Daniel made it a point to carve out time for each other. Whether it was cooking dinner together, taking long walks through the countryside, or simply sitting side by side watching the sunset, they cherished every moment spent in each other's company. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, built on trust, communication, and a shared vision for the future. One crisp autumn morning, as leaves painted the ground in hues of red and gold, Daniel surprised Emily with a trip to Paris, a city she had always dreamed of visiting. Hand in hand, they wandered through cobblestone streets, marveling at iconic landmarks like the Eiffel Tower and Notre Dame Cathedral. As they strolled along the Seine River, Daniel suddenly stopped and turned to face her. "Remember when we first met?" he asked, a nostalgic smile playing on his lips. "I was sitting in that diner booth pretending to be someone I wasn't, and you saw through all of that. You treated me with kindness and respect, even when everyone else assumed I was just another homeless man." Emily laughed softly, remembering those early days. "Well, you weren't exactly hard to figure out," she teased. "There was something about you that didn't quite fit the stereotype." Daniel chuckled, then grew serious. "What I'm trying to say is, thank you. Thank you for believing in me, for seeing the person beneath the facade. You've changed my life in ways I never thought possible." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she reached out to hold his hand. "And you've changed mine," she replied. "You've shown me that love knows no boundaries, that it doesn't matter where we come from or what we have. What matters is how we treat each other and the choices we make." They embraced tightly, surrounded by the timeless beauty of Paris. In that moment, they realized that their story wasn't just about two people overcoming differences. It was about finding meaning in connection, discovering strength in vulnerability, and embracing the power of second chances. Back home, Emily and Daniel continued inspiring those around them. Their partnership served as a testament to the idea that wealth and humility could coexist, that privilege came with responsibility, and that love transcended appearances. Through their actions, they demonstrated that true fulfillment lay not in accumulating riches but in enriching the lives of others. As winter approached, bringing with it snow-covered streets and twinkling holiday lights, Emily reflected on everything they had achieved together. From organizing her grandmother's birthday party to standing beside Daniel as he redefined success, their journey had been nothing short of extraordinary. Yet she knew this was only the beginning. Together, they would continue breaking barriers, challenging stereotypes and proving that sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden in plain sight. And so, wrapped in each other's arms, Emily and Daniel looked forward to the years ahead, with hope in their hearts, love guiding their steps, and a shared commitment to leaving the world a little brighter than they found it. As the years rolled on, Emily and Daniel's partnership flourished in ways neither of them could have predicted. Their lives became a tapestry of shared dreams, challenges overcome, and countless moments that reinforced their belief in the power of love and purpose. The foundation they had created in Margaret's name continued to grow, touching lives far beyond their small town. From funding scholarships for underprivileged students to supporting sustainable farming projects in rural communities, their efforts were making waves across the globe. But it wasn't just the grand gestures that defined their journey. It was also the quiet, everyday acts of kindness that kept their bond strong. Emily still worked at Maggie's place, serving coffee and chatting with regulars who had become like family over the years. For her, the diner remained a grounding force, a reminder of where she came from and the values instilled in her by her grandmother. Meanwhile, Daniel balanced his responsibilities as a billionaire CEO with his role as a devoted husband, ensuring he never lost sight of what truly mattered: their connection and the impact they sought to create together. One crisp winter morning, as snow blanketed the streets and frost clung to window panes, Emily received an unexpected letter in the mail. It was addressed to both her and Daniel, written in neat handwriting on simple stationery. Curious, she opened it and began reading aloud to Daniel, who sat across the kitchen table sipping his morning tea. "Dear Emily and Daniel," the letter began, "I hope this message finds you well. My name is Amina, and I live in a small village in Kenya. 2 years ago, your foundation helped build a school here, providing children, including my daughter, with access to education. Because of your generosity, my daughter recently graduated top of her class and has been accepted into a university program. Words cannot express how grateful we are for everything you've done. You've given us not just opportunities but hope, a gift more precious than anything else." Emily's voice trembled as she finished reading. Tears welled up in her eyes, and when she looked up at Daniel, she saw that his own cheeks were glistening. They sat in silence for a moment, absorbing the weight of Amina's words. Though they had always believed in the importance of their work, hearing directly from someone whose life had been transformed made it feel even more real. "This is why we do what we do," Daniel said softly, breaking the silence. "It's not about recognition or praise. It's about knowing we're making a difference no matter how small. Emily nodded, wiping away a tear. And it's because of people like Amina and her daughter that we keep going. Every story like hers reminds me of Grandma. She taught me that kindness ripples outward, affecting lives in ways we may never fully understand. That spring, Emily and Daniel decided to visit some of the communities their foundation supported. Traveling to places they had only seen in reports and photographs deepened their appreciation for the resilience and strength of the people they served. In Kenya, they met Amina and her daughter, Fatima, whose bright smile and determination left a lasting impression on them. In India, they spent time with young girls learning computer skills through a program funded by the foundation. And in Brazil, they joined local farmers planting crops using sustainable methods introduced thanks to their initiatives. Each encounter filled them with renewed energy and inspiration. Emily marveled at how every community embraced their efforts, not as charity but as collaboration, an opportunity to lift themselves up with dignity and pride. For Daniel, these trips solidified his belief that wealth was meaningless unless used to empower others. He often found himself reflecting on how far he'd come, from living incognito in a diner booth to standing alongside Emily as agents of change. Back home, their experiences abroad sparked new ideas for expanding the foundation's reach. They launched programs focused on mental health awareness, environmental conservation, and entrepreneurship training for women. These projects further cemented their reputation as leaders committed to creating lasting impact rather than fleeting solutions. Yet, amidst all their achievements, life wasn't without its trials. One summer, Emily faced a personal challenge that tested her resolve. Her close friend Sarah, who had been battling cancer for several years, passed away unexpectedly. The loss hit Emily hard. Sarah had been a constant source of support during difficult times, offering advice and encouragement whenever she needed it most. Grieving deeply, Emily withdrew from social activities and struggled to focus on her work. Daniel noticed the change immediately. He gave her space to process her emotions but stayed close, offering comfort whenever she needed it. One evening, as they sat together on the porch watching fireflies dance in the twilight, he gently broached the subject. "You don't have to face this alone," he said. "Sarah meant so much to you and losing her must feel unbearable. But remember, she wouldn't want you to stop living your life or helping others because of her absence." His words struck a chord within Emily. Though the pain of losing Sarah would never fully fade, she realized that honoring her friend's memory meant continuing the work they both believed in. Slowly, she began opening up again, channeling her grief into action. In Sarah's honor, she started a scholarship fund for aspiring nurses and caregivers, ensuring her friend's legacy lived on through those dedicated to healing others. By fall, Emily and Daniel celebrated another milestone, the 5th anniversary of their marriage. Friends, family, and colleagues gathered at their home for a cozy celebration filled with laughter, music, and heartfelt speeches. As they stood side by side cutting the cake, Emily glanced at Daniel and smiled. "5 years ago, I never imagined my life turning out like this," she admitted. "But now I can't picture it any other way." Daniel squeezed her hand affectionately. "Neither can I," he replied. "Every day with you feels like a gift. Together, we've built something extraordinary, not just a marriage, but a mission to make the world better." Their guests cheered, raising glasses in a toast to their enduring partnership. Among them was Tom, a former co-worker of Daniel's who had once doubted Emily's ability to adapt to their world. Now, seeing the couple's unwavering commitment to each other and their shared vision, he approached them with a sincere apology. "I owe you both an apology," Tom said, his tone earnest. "When you first got married, I questioned whether your relationship could last. But seeing how you've grown together, how you inspire everyone around you, it's clear I was wrong. You've proven that love transcends appearances and backgrounds. Congratulations." Emily and Daniel exchanged glances, then smiled warmly. "Thank you," Emily said graciously. "We've learned that relationships aren't about perfection. They're about growing together, supporting each other, and believing in something bigger than ourselves." As the year drew to a close, Emily and Daniel reflected on everything they had accomplished, and everything still ahead. Their journey had been marked by ups and downs, triumphs and setbacks, but through it all, they had remained steadfast in their commitment to each other and their mission. The foundation continued to thrive, reaching more people than ever before, yet they knew there was always more work to be done. On New Year's Eve, as fireworks lit up the night sky and the clock ticked toward midnight, Emily turned to Daniel with a thoughtful expression. "Do you think we'll ever run out of dreams to chase?" she asked, her voice tinged with humor. Daniel chuckled, pulling her closer. "Not a chance," he replied. "As long as we're together, there will always be new horizons to explore, new challenges to tackle, and new ways to make a difference." With that, they kissed under the shimmering stars, ready to embrace whatever the future held. Their story was far from over, but one thing was certain. Theirs was a love that defied expectations, a partnership rooted in authenticity, and a legacy built on compassion. And in a world often divided by differences, their union stood as proof that sometimes the greatest treasures lie hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to look beyond appearances. Years turned into decades, and Emily and Daniel's lives became a testament to the power of love, resilience, and purpose. Their journey together was not just about personal growth, but also about leaving an indelible mark on the world. The Margaret Legacy Foundation had grown into a global force for good, supporting countless initiatives that improved lives in tangible ways. From building schools and hospitals to funding innovative research projects, their work touched millions of people across continents. Yet despite their monumental achievements, Emily and Daniel remained grounded in the values they had cherished since the beginning of their relationship. They never lost sight of the fact that true wealth lay not in material possessions, but in meaningful connections and acts of kindness. This philosophy guided every decision they made, both personally and professionally. One summer afternoon, as in golden sunlight filtered through the windows of their home, Emily sat at the kitchen table flipping through old photo albums. Her fingers lingered over pictures of her grandmother, whose wisdom and love had shaped so much of her life. Beside them were snapshots from her wedding day, images of Daniel standing proudly beside her, their faces glowing with happiness. As she turned the pages, memories flooded back, memories of laughter, tears, triumphs, and challenges overcome. Daniel walked in carrying 2 cups of tea. "What are you looking at?" he asked, setting the mugs down and peering over her shoulder. "Just reminiscing," Emily replied with a soft smile. "It's funny how time flies. Sometimes it feels like we've lived several lifetimes already." Daniel chuckled, pulling up a chair next to her. "And yet, here we are, still chasing dreams and making plans. Do you ever wonder what the future holds?" Emily tilted her head thoughtfully. "I used to think about the future all the time, what I wanted, where I'd end up. But now I realize the future isn't something to worry about. It's something to create, step by step, moment by moment. And as long as we're doing that together, I'm not afraid of anything." Her words resonated deeply with Daniel. He reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "You know, when I first met you, I thought I was running away from my old life, but looking back, I see now that I wasn't running, I was searching. Searching for meaning, for connection, for someone who could remind me of what really matters. And somehow fate led me straight to you." Emily laughed softly, her eyes glistening with emotion. "Well, I guess fate works in mysterious ways. Who would have thought a homeless man sitting in a diner booth would turn out to be a billionaire and my soulmate?" As they grew older, Emily and Daniel began thinking more about legacy, not just the one they were creating through the Foundation, but the one they hoped to leave behind for future generations. They envisioned a world where compassion and empathy guided human interactions, where opportunities were accessible to everyone regardless of background or circumstance. To achieve this vision, they decided to expand their efforts beyond immediate aid and focus on systemic change. One initiative involved partnering with universities to develop programs that encouraged young leaders to tackle pressing global issues such as poverty, climate change, and inequality. Another focused on storytelling, collecting narratives from individuals whose lives had been transformed by the Foundation's work. These stories were shared widely, inspiring others to take action and reminding them that even small acts of kindness could spark profound change. Through these endeavors, Emily and Daniel ensured that their impact would endure long after they were gone. They often joked about being remembered as the waitress and the billionaire who proved appearances can be deceiving. But deep down, they knew their legacy would be defined by something far greater, the ripple effect of their love and generosity. In their later years, Emily and Daniel slowed down, savoring the quiet moments that came with age. They spent mornings tending to their garden, afternoons reading books aloud to each other, and evenings watching sunsets paint the sky in vibrant hues. Though their pace had changed, their passion for helping others remained undiminished. Even in retirement, they continued mentoring young activists, offering advice to budding entrepreneurs, and visiting communities supported by the Foundation. One crisp autumn evening, as they sat side by side on their porch wrapped in blankets, Emily turned to Daniel with a reflective expression. "Do you ever regret giving up your old life, the fast-paced corporate world, the jet-setting lifestyle?" she asked. Daniel shook his head without hesitation. "Not for a second," he replied. "That life might have brought me success, but it didn't bring me fulfillment. You did. This life we've built together. This is what I was searching for all along." Emily nodded, leaning her head against his shoulder. "Me too. I never imagined I'd end up married to a billionaire, but honestly, none of that matters. What matters is that we found each other and we've spent our lives making a difference. That's all anyone can hope for." Their final chapter unfolded gently, like leaves falling from a tree in winter. When Daniel passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 85, Emily felt both heartbroken and grateful. Heartbroken because she missed him fiercely, but grateful because they had shared a lifetime filled with love, adventure, and purpose. She honored his memory by continuing their work, ensuring that the Foundation thrived under her guidance until she too joined him years later. The town where their story began became a pilgrimage site of sorts, attracting visitors eager to learn about the waitress and the billionaire whose unlikely love story inspired millions. A statue of Emily and Daniel stood in the town square, holding hands and smiling, a symbol of hope, unity, and the belief that love transcends boundaries. Years after their passing, their story lived on, not just in monuments or memorials, but in the hearts of those they had touched. Children learned about them in school. Couples drew inspiration from their partnership, and communities carried forward their mission of service and compassion. Through it all, one truth remained clear. Emily and Daniel's love had changed the world. In a quiet corner of the library built in Margaret's honor, a plaque bore a simple inscription: "Love sees not with the eyes, but with the heart. Together we dreamed, we served, and we left the world a little brighter than we found it." And so, the tale of Emily and Daniel became more than just a story. It became a legend, a reminder that sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to look beyond appearances.